Hey folks, Jeremy here again with another little video for you. I decided I want to do something a little different this time. You know, I do the toy reviews, I do reviews of TV shows and all that good stuff, but I want to do something a little more personal, if that's okay with you. I felt like I wanted to do this because I know there's a lot of people out there who are similar to me in certain ways, beyond the superficial, collecting garbage like I do. What I wanted to do is I want to talk to you guys about me as a person and certain, I don't want to say demons, but I just want to say just aspects of my personality that I have to deal with on a daily basis. And there are aspects that I know a lot of people out there that are kind of in the, say, nerdy, geeky, whatever milieu have to deal with as well. It's a very common thing. And I'll just say it. The thing that I have to deal with more than anything is that I am autistic. I have Asperger syndrome. Again, like I said, I know it's a very common thing. I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what it means to me, what it is like to deal with it, and, maybe it can provide a little bit of inspiration, maybe a little insight into me. I just want to throw it out there because for me, it always feels good to get it off my chest. Just to verbally diarrhea spew everything that there is about me. Maybe one person will see it, maybe a billion people will see it. Whatever. I think the place to start with it is the biggest struggle that I've always had with it. And for me, the biggest struggle, especially when I was younger, was just not knowing what was wrong with me. And I hate to put it in that terminology, but that's true. Something is technically wrong with me. And I didn't really get it because I'd always just sit there and I would wonder, why am I so much quieter than everybody else? I want to put myself out there, but I can't. There's just this internal fear that is hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have that problem. There's people out there in the world that it blows my mind, but they can go to bed every night just fine with a clear conscience. They're not thinking about things. And then you have people like me who sit there and you just stew and stew and stew on the littlest of things. It doesn't matter how much it does or does not affect you. You're going to second guess it all the time. I'm always sitting there thinking to myself, why didn't I handle that better? Here's what I could have said in that scenario. Why didn't I say it? What is wrong with me that I can't put forward the full picture of who I am as an individual? And the thing is people would always just say, oh, he's shy. My parents would say that, especially my mom. They'd be like, oh, he's shy. Or you have to get to know him. Or, just excuses like that. And I think at the time, it's one of those things where you want to explain the person. You want everybody to have an understanding. But if you don't have an understanding, then how can that message be clearly displayed? And so for all these years, I would just throw pity parties. I would wonder, why is it every day after school I go home and I don't hang out with these people that I consider my friends? And some of these people, they're not really even my friends. They're just people that can use me. They can use my intelligence to get better grades. They can use money that I quite frankly shouldn't have had to throw around to get something at lunch. There would always be something that, and I would hide in the back of my head, but I knew the truth. There's something about me that they want. They don't actually want my friendship, but I was so scared to get outside my bubble to do anything about it. I was scared to go out on excursions, to spend time with people, because I'm so introverted that doing that, going to the unknown, terrifies me. And once I do go out there, it's just exhausting. It's just physically and emotionally and mentally draining. And you couple that with the fact that I'm like, why is this who I am? It completely just crushes your sense of identity, your sense of as being an individual. And so the most amazing breakthrough I had, I was probably 22, 23 maybe, when a friend of mine who, not surprising for people like me, is somebody that I met on the internet and who I've actually only seen physically in person twice in my life. I have a million thanks to give to her because she told me about Asperger's, and because she has it as well. And I just sat there and I listened to her, and it was an amazing thing, first of all, because honestly, I had almost ruined that friendship before then. Because I was one of those people who, again, was always just like, woe is me. You know, I'm not doing anything about it. I should be doing something for myself, but I just wasn't. And so when I was able to reconnect with her, and thank God she gave me a second chance. But I was able to reconnect with her, and I understood the condition, and I got myself diagnosed. It was odd because on one hand you're thinking, okay, there's no way to actually treat this. It's a mental condition that you're always going to have. You can't fix it, so to speak. But it was still just this amazing weight off my shoulders because I knew what I was dealing with. Sure, I couldn't cure myself, so to speak, but I could treat myself. And not treat yourself, but I could treat myself. And it's just, again, I think it's having that analytical mind that comes with the condition, is that you just love having all the information in front of you. It doesn't matter if you know exactly how to solve it. It doesn't even matter how long it's going to take you to solve it, or if it's even a solvable situation. It's just knowing that I have all the tools at my disposal. It just put me in control for the first time in my entire life. And people tell me that since that time that I have become a more open person. I have become a little more vocal in who I am. I am just much more pleasant to be around. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm still not normal, so to speak. I still have panic attacks. I still even have bouts of depression. Like wondering, like, why am I not in my life where my peers are? And I think that's the one thing that people have to realize if you have such a condition, is that you can't compare yourself to people who don't have the same psychological issues that you do, you know? Yeah, some people get married in their early 20s and they have kids and they have a house and they have their whole family situation pretty much sorted out. And that's great for them. And that doesn't mean that I should feel less of a person because I'm in my early 30s and I'm single and I'm still in an apartment by myself. That's okay. That's who I have to be right now. I have to tell myself that I'm in control and that when and if the right person comes along, that'll be the right time. You know, you don't have to get philosophical and say it's a religious thing or it's a whatever beliefs thing. It's just whatever you personally feel deep down inside you. And some people can say that's whistling through the graveyard, but I think it's realism. I think it's understanding that your problem, you understand your problem and you know how to deal with it. But these other people might be having different problems of their own. I mean, I also know peers who have since high school been divorced and they have kids that they might not be financially capable of taking care of them all that easily. And, you know, they might have other physical problems or other mental problems that you can't see those. So, you know, everybody has their baggage. Everybody has their thing. And the thing you need to take home more than anything else is that your problem is not worse than theirs. Their problem is not worse than yours. It's just different. And I think that's what I've come to terms with the most in the last few years. And, you know, again, I still have my struggles. There are still plenty of times where I put my foot in my mouth. There are still plenty of times where I know what I want to say to somebody, but I can't get the words out in the right order. And I panic. And I feel like I'm a lesser person because of that. And I have to get that out of my mind. I really, really do. Because again, I know people who I see them, I talk to them, and I'm like, you have problems that are clearly a massive burden that I don't know how I would deal with. So it's not for me to sit here and just be woe is me. To be like, oh, poor Jeremy. He's got it so hard. It's not like that. It's one of those situations where you just have to understand that you need to tackle your own issues. It's going to be hard sometimes. Again, I can sit here and I can muse to myself and be like, how dare that person who I think is not as nice as me, or is not as good as me, or is not as whatever as me. How dare they have all these things that I don't have? How dare them? I can't think like that. Because if you spiral yourself into jealousy, then that's what happens. You just become an awful, bitter, jealous person. I think that's the message I want to drive home to anybody out there watching this. It's the old cliche. It's the thing they say, you know, nowadays when it comes to people who are struggling with their sexuality. They always say it gets better. They always try to remind you that, you know, high school is high school, and all these little things that, you know, everything you deal in high school seems like nothing in college, and everything you deal with in college seems like nothing in the real world. And nothing once you get into the real world, means anything when you're an older adult. You know, every decade makes that you gain makes everything that came before it seem like peanuts. So that's what you need to grasp onto. You know, you can't hang on to the what ifs and the past scenarios. Because again, I can sit here and I think about the old version of me. And I'm not talking about the fact that before I changed myself physically, for those of you who know me personally, but I think about myself mentally and the way I talked to people and the way I acted. And I am annoyed because I'm like, you had so many opportunities that you were just scared to grab, or you were just so off-putting to people that you're lucky there's anybody still in your life. Or, you know, you were just such a rotten human being. And I don't dwell on that anymore. Or at least I don't let it take up very much of my time. I really keep it as much in the rearview mirror as possible. Because if I spend my 30s dwelling on the things that I did wrong in my 20s, then the next thing I'll know, I'll be 40. And I'll be like, oh great, I wasted all my time in my 30s dwelling on my 20s. Like, what is wrong with me? I can't just keep that cycle going. And I think that's what I'm telling you guys right now, is always push forward. You'll have some great moments. One of the things I want to do with this video, or maybe a video series, honestly, if people enjoy it, is not just talk about these down moments they have, but I want to talk about my triumphs. Like, I think one of the biggest triumphs for me, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was funny because I had told my family, I said, you know, I've talked to a psychologist, like, I'm pretty sure I have Asperger's. And there wasn't really much from that. You know, my brother didn't say anything really either way or the other. My dad didn't really say anything any way or the other. My mom kind of gave me the impression that she thought that I was just, like, looking for a diagnosis. I don't know. And I think that she, through her daytime television watching maybe, I'm not 100% sure, or what, but I think she grew to understand, because it was Christmas morning, and I opened a book from her. It was a package, there's a book in it, and it was a book, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for the author's name, I'll put it in the description, but the book was called Look Me in the Eyes, and it was a book by an author who has Asperger's, and who has managed to have a very successful career and a family. And it was just an amazing book about just the struggles and explaining it to people. A, explaining to people who don't understand it, and B, for people who do have it, just telling, you know, just being a friendly ear and explaining, you know, that you can deal with it. And I took that book and I went by myself into the bathroom by myself, and I cried. I had a very good cry, and it was genuine tears of joy, because you know, in the same way that I was so happy when I found out what my problem was, I was so happy that my family was starting to embrace it, understand that it's real, and be okay with it. You know, my mom, that was her way of saying, you know, I understand this is your thing, and we will deal with it. And I think all my family has pretty much come around to that, and they've understood it, and they get that I'm not like regular people. And even my family, I mean, they're not the most open people to begin with either. You know, I think there's a lot of introversion just in general amongst my family. So it was just such an amazing moment, you know? It's just that moment where you feel you're a part of something, as silly as it may sound. If you know, you feel inclusion. And I don't think I feel that as much as I'd like to sometimes. You know, I mean, I do some cool stuff. I do the podcast. You guys know about the podcast, most likely. And it's a big deal for me because it's one of the most inclusionary things I have in my life. And I have small groups of friends, and, you know, we don't go out a lot, but we do talk. And that's enough for me. Or at least right now it is. I feel like I am part of people who either get me or they don't understand, but they are willing to embrace me. And I think that's a huge deal for me. And I think that's what everybody out there needs, is if you're not, find that group of people. There are like-minded individuals out there, especially in the day of the internet. I mean, Lord, how I wish I was 10 years younger just so that when I was a kid, the internet was a thing. Because the internet didn't really become a thing until I was pretty much a teenager already. And even then, social media wasn't really around. I mean, I'm actually one of those people that had Facebook in college when you had to be a college student to have Facebook. So that's how slightly behind I was. But I mean, that's, it's something I kick myself for. I'm like, all these people that I went to high school with, like, why didn't I stay in contact with them? Why did I only, reconnect with them slightly now, once social media is a bigger thing? Like, why didn't I stay in contact with them all through college? Why didn't I have a better college experience? But you know what? I think they would have hated that person. I think they would have grown apart from that person. So maybe it was right for me to just be by myself for a while and figure out who I am. And I think that's it for now, guys. Again, if you have any cool stories, please share them with me. If there's anything you want me to talk about specifically, I mean, I am an absolute open book. I promise you. I will talk to you about anything if you want to hear about it. And, like the video, subscribe, comment, anything you got out there. Just, any sort of positive vibes. I really enjoy talking about this sort of stuff. I really enjoy getting it off my chest and throwing it out there. Hopefully it means something to somebody out there, guys. So that's it from Jeremy until I have another crappy toy to review for you or a box to open and show you what's in it, because that's what I do. All right, see you guys.